You are now listening to WBPPR, Big Pretty Public Radio. The following program has been brought to you by Ashfield Crematorium, where all of your problems go up in smoke. And by Casket Baskets. Our prices are unbelievable. And also by Steve's Pet Cemetery, now with a petting zoo.
This next man has been a guest on our show many times and has insisted this will be his final appearance. Bobby Grabowski. Bobby Grabowski. Oh, it's Bobby Grabowski.
I walk a lonely road, the only one that I have ever known. Don't know where it goes, but it's home to me and I walk alone. I walk this empty street on the boulevard of broken dreams, where the city sleeps and I'm the only one and I walk alone. I walk alone, I walk alone. I walk alone, I walk up. My shadow's only one that walks beside me. My shallow heart's the only thing that's beating. Sometimes I wish someone up there will find me. Till then I walk alone. I'm walking down the line that divides me somewhere in my mind, on the borderline of the edge and where I walk alone. Read between the lines what's fucked up and everything's alright. Check my vital signs and know I'm still alive and I walk alone. I walk alone, I walk alone.
Okay, I'm going to do it. Time to go. Game on. No one can stop me. No one cares. No one cares? Okay, well, I kind of painted myself in the corner here. Here goes nothing. And now? And now?
Hanging out while the monkeys type away, waiting in my room all day. Why be realistic?
And now, a very special presentation of An Evening with the Authors, remembering Bobby Grabowski. Please welcome your host, Dana Glass.
And they're retired nuts, and that might be the hardest nut.
Good evening and welcome to a very special evening with the authors. I have had the pleasure of presenting the public with a lineup of wonderful authors sharing excerpts of their compositions for the last 2 years. Though I would normally say that this is a time for celebration, tonight's evening will be dedicated as a memorial service for the author who has appeared here on multiple occasions. No doubt a memorable experience for us all, the unforgettable Bobby Grabowski. It is simply by happenstance, my discovery that he had passed away. I called him to book him for this anniversary show, and his voicemail simply said, "Well, I'm just going to kill myself now. I hope you're happy. Leave a message." Apparently, Bobby had done what he had promised to do during his last appearance on this program and decided it was best to take his own life. Some say it was the depression. Some say it was alcohol. Some say it was about time. I reached out to his family and found that they had no interest at all in holding a wake nor funeral. I tried to locate some of Bobby's friends and found that he didn't even have acquaintances, well, none that would admit to have been, met him. Then I remembered the time he signed my copy of his book, Cooking for One, for the Rest of Your Life. He signed it to my only friend, Bobby. This compelled me to arrange a celebration of his life, and that is what we'll be doing tonight. So please forgive me, instead of hearing excerpts of the written works of best-selling authors, you will be introduced to Bobby's life so that he may be remembered. An evening with the eulogists, if you will. That said, I will begin with a few words about Bobby. He was an author. He wrote books and would sometimes read them here on this show. Sometimes they were typed, sometimes they were handwritten. They were always from the heart, I suppose. Bobby had a way with I can't do this. Look, I didn't even know the man. Okay, I'm just trying to do the right thing here. There are other people here that should be out here talking about him. Let's just get on with it here, and God knows what they're going to say. Thank you for joining us with an evening with the eulogists. Stay with us. Our first speaker was Bobby's AA sponsor, who, for anonymity's sake, is using his first name only. Here to speak of his experiences with Bobby, ladies and gents, please welcome Robert.
Oh, hello everyone. It's great to be alive. Oh, I was Bobby's AA sponsor, and I'm free. I'm free now. All right, it's like a whole new world has opened up for me. It's like I've got a new lease. Anyway, I'll start. Hi, my name is Robert, and I am an alcoholic. I will not be giving my last name due to anonymity of the Alcoholics Anonymous, and also the fact that I do not want anyone associated with Bobby to be able to contact me ever. I was sober for 3 years. When I met Bobby, I had gotten back with my wife, who had finally forgiven me. My children once again seemed to adore me, and I had just gotten my third promotion in 2 years at my job. Then after my first long conversation with Bobby, now mind you, all conversations with him were long, and they weren't really conversations. They were more like sad monologues in front of one audience member. Anyway, after my first long conversation with Bobby, I had my first relapse. He was such a sad human being. I just, around him, I couldn't handle being sober, you know. It was almost as if being sober and listening to him was worse than any of the rock bottoms that I had previously experienced. Being a drunk, alcoholic loser seemed like winning when I was forced to be around him. Because it numbed me to the plagued life that was Bobby Gabowski. Since sponsoring Bobby, I lost my wife and my jobs, and my kids hate me. And still, with all of the above, the worst thing that's happened to me was every week I had to meet with him. The first time I came into contact with Bobby was about 2 years ago. He walked into what I assume was his first AA meeting. I was there. He was late, disheveled, and crying the saddest whimper I had ever heard up to that point. Like a dog that had been hit by a car but was just too stupid to lay down and die. Though it was the saddest whimper I had heard to date, the only one who seemed to beat that record was Bobby himself later on in more encounters that I had with him. Anyway, he walked selfishly up to the podium, interrupting the chairperson, and without knowing anyone, started complaining about how miserable his life was, and going on and on about all the bad things that happened to him. This lasted roughly 3 hours, I'm told. I, like most, left about an hour in. I missed the AA meeting the following week, and I became Bobby's sponsor through default. He was basically the last person picked that day, and because I wasn't there, I was assigned to him. That night, unbeknownst to me that I was a sponsor now, I received 8 voicemail messages from him. Then later that night, at about 2:30 a.m. in the morning while I was sleeping, I heard this loud banging on my door with a miserable voice on the outside saying, I know you're in there. I know you're in there. And this lasted till about 9:30 in the morning, when I finally, after a sleepless night, gave in and opened the door to try to calm him down. Persistence has some value. So anyway, steps 8 and 9 of the 12 steps of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, are as follows. 8, make a list of all the persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. 9, make direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. I am here tonight not because I'm asking for Bobby's forgiveness or make amends to him. Rather, I'm here tonight to accept Bobby's amends, which I feel he has successfully given to me and all of you through doing the right thing. Since I heard of Bobby's death, I've been the happiest of my adult life. I haven't even thought about alcohol. It's like I'm a new human being. So in conclusion, if I had to pick a quote for Bobby's tombstone, it would read this: you can't beat cancer when you are the cancer. Thank you. Thank you.
Look, I've done my best to get people that may have known him or are willing to talk about him. I can't control what they're going. Our next presenter asks that we not use her real name. Okay. So she doesn't die of embarrassment from the shame of her past mistakes. Please welcome Bobby Grabowski's ex-wife.
Oh, good evening, friend. I'm sorry, that's not right. Peers? No, that seems wrong too. Acquaintances? Bobby Grabowski. I am Bobby Grabowski's ex-wife, and for some reason, I've been asked to say a few words about him. And those words are pathetic, sad, and loser. You see, Bobby and I met at a very difficult time in my life. I was struggling with a pretty serious addiction to pills. Valium, Xanax, Norco, Vicodin, Vicaprofen, Soma, Lortab, Lorcet, Percocet, Percodan, Adderall, Cialis, benzos, uppers, downers, hoppers, loopers, goofballs, yellow jackets, you name it, I took it. Oh, fortunately that time is behind me now. No, but my parents insisted that I go to rehab, which is where I first encountered Bobby. He was outside begging for change. From his disheveled appearance, I assumed that he was one of the counselors from the rehab center, dressing up as like a cautionary tale of sorts, showing new patients what our lives could be if we didn't turn away from our tragic drug addictions. But no, for some reason, Bobby was just begging for change outside of a drug rehab center. I have no idea why. It was a whirlwind romance, again, mostly due to the pills. We had so much fun together. We were sneaking into movie theaters, dining and dashing at our favorite restaurants, getting men to buy me drinks in bars, and then Bobby would suck on the melting ice cubes to try to like catch a buzz from that. I thought Bobby was wild and spontaneous, but it turns out he was just sad and broke. He said he always liked to live on the edge. I just didn't know he meant on the edge of poverty. Bobby told me that he was in medical device development. I suppose working in a dildo factory technically qualifies as medical device development. However, he certainly was not the wealthy entrepreneur I had hoped to wed. But it didn't matter, you guys. I was in such a haze of prescription drugs that I would have married the raccoon living in Bobby's ceiling if he would have asked. Oh, I'm so glad I don't have to worry about that anymore. Yes, but no, my primary reason for courting Bobby was, of course, to anger my parents. There would be no better way to get back at them for sending me to that all-girls boarding school than for their prim, proper WASP daughter to marry a Grabowski. Robert Grabowski, have you ever heard a more Jewish name in your entire goddamn life? I told him I'd convert as long as I didn't have to change my name, which he was more than agreeable to. I only later found out it's because he wasn't Jewish. As best I can tell, someone just horribly misspelled his name on his birth certificate, and no one ever bothered to correct it. Also, it turns out that Bobby wasn't a nickname for Robert. He was actually named after a Canadian child actor named Bobby Breen, who died tragically before reaching adulthood in the early 1930s. Wishful thinking, he told me his mother used to say to him as a child almost every day. My plan backfired, though. My parents were just so relieved that I was going to be somebody else's problem that they insisted on a wedding within the first 3 months of our relationship. Our wedding day was filled with tears. There wasn't a dry eye in that Ramada Inn banquet room. For Bobby, they were tears of joy. My parents, who had hoped I would marry a junior senator, or at the very least a doctor, were crying over my lost potential. I was just in tears because I was out of Quaaludes. When the judge asked if we promised to remain faithful to each other till death do us part, Bobby enthusiastically pledged, "I do." Once I stopped laughing, all I could muster was a sure. Oh, I want to clear up a rumor that is likely going around. Bobby Grabowski and I never had sex. You may be asking how that's possible, what with my beautiful daughter Samantha, but I assure you that we were never physically intimate. We simply couldn't. It was a physical impossibility. I suppose it's uncouth to speak about this at a man's wake, but you'll all find out at the open casket funeral anyway. Bobby has what was referred to in the medical community as micropenile disorder, or a micropenis. It was virtually unusable. The man has to sit down to pee. It's a real shit show, you guys. Now, unfortunately, I didn't know this until our wedding night. Bobby insisted that we wait until we were married to consummate our relationship. How romantic, I thought. Plus, I was still getting plowed regularly by those guys picking up my bar tabs, so only now do I know why he was so insistent upon waiting. His pathetic attempt at coitus on our wedding night was basically just like two clams high-fiving repeatedly, like, I eventually passed out to the sound of him weeping uncontrollably. I woke up in a haze a few hours later to him standing over me, a turkey baster in his left hand. "Get away from me, you troll!" I cried as I came to, but it was too late. You see, I'm very, very fertile, and my spongy womb just couldn't resist even the tiniest amount of Grabowski seed. I knew just 2 weeks later that I was in a family way with darling Samantha. I tried to have the marriage annulled, but the judge said there was nothing he could do now that the union had been consummated. "But it wasn't," I protested. The judge wouldn't hear of it, and I was doomed to be Mrs. Bobby Grabowski. Now, in retrospect, becoming pregnant likely saved my life. My parents sent me to an inpatient drug treatment facility in Nova Scotia, a place so remote they haven't even heard of Klonopin, you guys. Samantha was born 9 months later in a nearby hospital. Bobby wasn't allowed in the delivery room, of course, not because of the treatment center's rules. I just couldn't stand the thought of him being anywhere near me. Despite numerous paternity tests at my insistence, there was no denying that she was Bobby's daughter. When I called him a week later to give him the good news, he told me that it would have been the happiest day of his life if he'd only known about it. Once I returned home from Nova Scotia, I immediately filed for divorce. Well, not immediately. First, I had sex with Bobby's boss at the dildo factory. My therapist at the treatment center suggested I do it to help ease the transition back into life at home, and said that Bobby wouldn't mind at all, so... My next priority was, of course, to provide for Samantha. Thankfully, my attorney father had drafted an ironclad prenuptial agreement, which Bobby neglected to read prior to our wedding day. He was left with no choice but to move into an efficiency apartment on the wrong side of town and take a second job cleaning porta potties. Despite this, he was still rarely able to make his child support payments on time. And I had no choice but to keep Samantha away from her father until he could fulfill his financial obligation with interest, of course. Frankly, I don't mind. I mean, I don't really need the money. Plus, I'd much rather her spend time at home with me and my new husband, Todd. He's a much better influence on her than Bobby, always so eager to spend time with her and take her swimming. That's the kind of father figure I want in Samantha's life. I don't want her insides poisoned with peanut butter sandwiches and her mind rotted with reruns of Xena Warrior Princess. I'm sure that's all she'd be getting over at Bobby's place. So, in summation, how Do you sum up a life so wasted, so void of purpose and joy as that of Bobby Grabowski? What is the most fitting sentiment for a man whose life meant so little to so few? I think I say it best when I simply say this: who gives a shit? Thank you.
What an awful, awful woman. I don't know why nice guys are always attracted to the most nefarious of women. It's the strangest thing ever. So, in an endeavor to find someone to say something positive, this next guy just wandered in off the street to ask to use the bathroom. When he heard it was Bobby's wake, he said he knew him. So, thus far, he's the only one to claim to have been his friend, so we're going to let him say something. Please welcome Hobo Joe.
Thank you for letting me speak. People usually don't. I first met Bobby when he jumped off the bridge I was living under. I don't know why he did it, 'cause the bridge was only like 8 feet tall. So he just twisted his ankle. I ran up to help right away, and I even offered him a drink out of my bottle. I'll never forget how he looked up at me, and he said, "Okay, let's get this over with." And then he tried to give me a blowjob. But I didn't want a blowjob. I told him he could just have a drink. And then he started crying and saying how I was his new best friend and stuff. I didn't have the heart to tell him that I already got a best friend. It's this possum named Eugene who lives in my box sometimes when it's cold out. He and Bobby never really got along. I remember one time I found this Burger King wrapper that still had a lot of cheese left on it. And I told Eugene and Bobby that they could split it. But then they got in this fight because Bobby said that Eugene took more than his fair share. I told him that I would go try to find another wrapper, but Bobby said it didn't matter because he was already late for work. I don't think he even had a job at the time. He was just trying to save his pride. He always talked a lot about his daughter Samantha and how someday he would get custody of her again, and that he would marry a new mom for her and get a good job and take them to Disney World. So I hope that worked out. I'm real sad to hear that he died, although he was always trying to kill himself, so it's nice that he accomplished one of his goals, I guess. Anyway, I'll miss you, friend. Good night, sweet prince. Hey, Dana, I was hoping you could give this to the family.
It's been licked clean, you know. It's I really tried to find some people who might know something about Bobby. The next speaker, He was the first who discovered the body of the deceased. Please welcome Detective John Hurst.
Hi, the name's Detective John Hurst. Apparently, Bobby requested that the police report be read at his wake. So I'm here to read his police report. Name, Robert Grabowski. Alias, Bobby. Age, 47. Sex, male. Race, Caucasian. Possibly Polish. Incident. Nature of complaint. Follow-up on potential suicidal thoughts. Complaint against Bobby Grabowski. Date, June 1st, 2017. Time, 11 p.m. Description of incident. Mr. Grabowski had been flagged by a number of local gun ranges after repeatedly going and requesting 3 bullets. One for the ex-wife, one for the new guy, and one for myself. And then saying, nah, I'm just kidding. And then saying, but seriously, I'm going to do it. I'm really going to do it this time. And then finally saying, but not really. Despite all of this, he was still allowed to purchase a gun and ammunition. The shop owner remarked he was depressing my other customers. I had never seen a grown man cry so much at the gun range. So when his background checked out, I was happy to help him out. I was assigned to watch over Bobby as others believed him to be a potential murder-suicide risk. I interviewed him once and determined that there was no risk. I watched him practice at the gun range once, and he was not even able to hit the outside of the target. I felt bad for the man, so I gave him my number in case his thoughts manifested into anything other than fantasies. On the date of the incident, June 1st, 2017, he called my personal phone, stating that this was it, and he was finally going to do it this time unless somebody showed up to stop him, anyone, even you. I was alarmed, but busy. I decided to stop by his apartment on the way home to check up on him. That was where I found the deceased. Description of injuries, not available. Place of treatment, not available. Comments. Upon entering the home of the deceased, I first noticed a number of bullet holes in the walls. On closer observation, they were recent. It is unclear why the neighbors did not call the authorities. Either they didn't hear, which seems unlikely, or they simply didn't care, which seems more probable. Based on the lack of any blood evidence, it appears that no one had been struck by a bullet, including the deceased. There was a desk in the corner of the room with a laptop still on and open. The browser was showing a hardcore pornographic video entitled, "Man Watches as Ex-Wife is Pounded by BBC." Through some Googling, it has come to my attention that BBC means Big Black Cock. The video had been watched in its entirety. There were a number of used tissues near the computer, though they appear to have been used for tears rather than seed. Next to the desk was a stack of seemingly unfinished manuscripts, the top of which was entitled Xena, Warrior Queen by Bobby Grabowski. Next to that was a stack of rejection letters from various publishers. On the other end of the room was a lazy boy, coffee table, and television. On the coffee table was a children's book he had written for his daughter Samantha. Across from the chair was a CRT television that had the words "Property of Motel 8" printed on the side. The TV sat on a cardboard box within which sat the Xena Warrior Princess box set on VHS. In the kitchen was a family-sized frozen dinner, only a third of which had been consumed. Next to that was a bottle of grain liquor, mostly consumed, and a letter called Bobby's suicide note. The date on the note had been crossed out and rewritten multiple times, the earliest date being 2009. The note did not, however, contain today, June 1st, date. I believe that this note he has read in public before at this very venue. Opening a closet, I found a large length of rope that had been cut into 5-foot sections, next to which was a book entitled Boy Scout America's Deck of Knots, bookmarked to the page with the hangman's noose. At the bottom of the page in red ink were the words, "Too hard." His mattress was on the floor of the bedroom, surrounded by bottles of everything ranging from vodka to hand sanitizer to antifreeze. It appears Mr. Grabowski was unaware that antifreeze poisoning is cured by alcohol. On the bedside table was a picture of his daughter Samantha. Pinned to the wall was an 8x10 photo of his ex-wife with a Satan mustache drawn on her face, a phallus drawn over her mouth, and a dart in her forehead. Those surrounding holes would indicate that he used this as a target frequently. There were a number of pills and bottles throughout the bedroom, though it looked as if none of them had ever been taken. It was then that I noticed a putrid odor coming from the bathroom. On the floor was a toaster unplugged with a sticky note that read, "Need extension cord." Spewed about the room were empty bottles of lye. The bathtub was full. I could not tell if the odor was coming from the bathtub or just the fact that it appeared the room had not been cleaned in a while. That was when I discovered the following note taped to the mirror. "Hey, this is Bobby here. I finally did it. I'm going to off myself, for real this time. You can tell because if you look in the bathtub, you won't be able to see anything at all. That's because I filled it with hot water and lye and got in it. Did you know that a body can dissolve in a solution of water and lye? I didn't know that until I read that the Mexican mafias do it all the time. It's totally true and definitely real. You can Google it right now. It can dissolve real quick, too. If you look in the bathtub, you won't see a body, which means that you have all the evidence that you need to pronounce me dead. Sincerely, Bobby Grabowski." Dated June 1st, 2017, 8 a.m. Forensics is still waiting to determine if there is any human tissue left in the bathtub. All that was left was a mustache and hairpiece. Though the timing doesn't line up completely, it does seem that this was in fact a suicide and will be treated as such for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you, Detective Hurst. So, here to tell us about the bestest big brother in the world, Donnie Grabowski. Donnie? Donnie Grabowski, Bobby's little brother. Donnie. Donnie, put your pants on. That's how Bobby would have wanted it.
I've heard a lot of crazy things about my brother tonight. You know, there's a lot of people out there that'll tell you Bobby wasn't a good guy, but that's just because, you know, he met a lot of people. Met a lot of people at job interviews, his vodka meetings. So good at drinking vodka, he's sponsored. Sorry, I'm stressed out after his death. I'm back on the mayonnaise. I'm a stress eater. Bobby was always looking out for me when I was a kid. will show me how to do things. Like how to make people think I could read. He was always keeping me real safe when I was a little kid. One time when I was a kid, I got a bike from her stepdad, Roger. Bobby told me how sometimes new bikes can have a lot of problems. So he volunteered to ride it for a few years to make sure it worked good. I really could have gotten hurt on that bike. He got me my job. Back in about 2014, Bobby bought a Blockbuster franchise. He had it going for a few months, and he called me. He said, "You know, Donnie, I just don't think this is a good fit for me, but I thought you'd be pretty good at it." So he sold it to me. I paid a little bit more, you know, because it was an opportunity, but and after a few months, I was just so ashamed the police wasn't doing well. I thought Bobby'd be disappointed in me. Nobody was coming in to get any of the videos. Fortunately for me, some well-off hipster kids came in and bought it from me. They serve brunch in it now. It's a Brunch Busters. They serve avocado toast in old VHS boxes. I don't get it, but it's working out. Anyway, I just hang out in the back and wash the boxes. Best job I ever had. He was always keeping me safe when I was a little kid. I read that part. He made my whole life, a whole circle of friends is because of Bobby. People say you can't trust Bobby with nothing. But you can trust him. He's the most trustworthy guy I knew. Father Callahan trusted him to be his first secret friend. And Bobby kept that secret. If he would have told, none of us would have gotten to be Father Callahan's secret friends either. And we wouldn't have had those feelings meetings. We all wouldn't know so much about each other. It's really nice of him to share that with us. I just want to say Bobby was a great guy. I was always really jealous of his wife, Denise. She's amazing. His daughter, Samantha. Oh, if she's here. Samantha, I'll be your dad. I'll be your dad. I want to have a baby. I want to have a baby, guys. I miss Bobby. Dana?
Here, how about Joe wanted you to have that? It's really great. Belonged to Bobby. Donnie Grabowski. And just so you know, that's not how custody works. Just up next is Bobby's daughter, Samantha, who is supposed to say a few words about her dad. Samantha?
Hi, my name's Samantha. I guess a lot of you know me because my dad's super creepy and gross, and he read from my diary that one time. First of all, I'm not pregnant, and I never was pregnant. I wasn't pregnant at all. That one time, I got my period super late because prom was coming up, and I wanted to fit into this really cute dress from Windsor. So I ate only crackers and carrots for like 3 months. But it wasn't even worth it because Luke Dunsmith broke up with me like the day after I went down on him, and he told everybody I had chlamydia or whatever, which like doesn't even make sense. But he did knock up Mary Beth, and they didn't even graduate because they got caught smoking weed behind the school. So peace haters. One of the last things that my dad wrote to me before he offed himself was this Valentine's Day card, where he finally apologized for giving away my college fund to some Nigerian prince or whatever. Honestly, I am surprised he didn't accidentally marry me off to some creep in like Argentina or something, but whatever. So despite all that, I got into Butler University on a field hockey scholarship, and I pledged Kappa Alpha Theta. What? That's right. But I guess I'm supposed to talk about my dad because he killed himself. I mean, he wrote a few books about me, which I guess was kind of nice and all, and he called me a princess, which I am. So, I mean, I didn't really spend too much time with him or nothing. I mean, I remember from when I was little and my parents were shouting a lot about Todd, my dad. I mean, my stepdad. Todd's really nice. I mean, he always helps me out with stuff, and he takes me shopping, and he always picks out the cutest bikinis for me to wear and pays for everything. And, like, we hang out all the time, and he lets me drink beer with him, which is super cool. And he never told Mom about the time that I got really drunk and was skinny dipping in our above-ground pool that I don't really remember very much. But we were laughing a whole bunch, and I remember seeing his abs, and, well, that stuff doesn't matter. But, so my dad just wasn't like Todd. But my dad was kind of nice sometimes. Whenever Mom would make me go to his apartment, he'd make up stories about the weird I don't know if I can cuss in here, but he would make up stories about the weird shit that he was doing, and how shitty his place was, and how gross his food was. I mean, all my clothes smelled super weird when I'd come home, and I need to take 3 showers to get the smell out because the place was like a real Breaking Bad type stuff, and that's why he got his apartment so cheap. But once I found a cockroach in my Coach purse, and oh my God, it was so gross. I don't even know how I survived that thing, but Todd killed it because he's dope. But my dad once made up, here's a story about my dad. My dad once made up a story about the people next door who had really loud sex, and he would say oh, it's a secret torture chamber, and the guy's a Russian spy or whatever, and the lady's a secret agent who brings all her marks to this shitty apartment building because no one would suspect her of anything there, so she could torture government secrets out of them and stuff. And it was super funny. But then we heard the cops come in because there was some freak kink accident where the lady accidentally stepped on the guy's eyeball with her stiletto. Right? Yeah. So I guess he tried really hard, and I sort of always thought that was kind of sweet. So anyway, I guess he was a nice dad sometimes, and even though he didn't leave me an inheritance or anything, I guess bye, Dad. I don't know. He's not he doesn't have his casket here or nothing, but I guess I'm supposed to say goodbye. And I hope you're looking down on us from heaven and are happier up there with the angels, even though technically you're supposed to go to hell because you killed yourself. I'll miss you and I love you, but if you are in hell, I hope I never see you again. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
That was Samantha. Our final speaker, Frank Herzl, Bobby Grabowski's lawyer, is here to discuss some legal matters with his estate. Frank Herzl.
Hello, I'm Frank Herzl. I'm a highly respected lawyer. I graduated Harvard Law School, top of my class. I was featured in Law Monthly as top 3 lawyer in the city. When I took my bar exam, that was the same day as my father's funeral. I had promised my brother I would go to it, but instead took the bar exam, missing my own father's funeral. The next day, I was drinking at Lorraine's, a local dive bar in my area, and I saw a man who was, I'll be honest, I've never seen a man plastered on just gin-soaked martini olives from discarded martini glasses that he was just scooping out and eating. An interesting person. So I asked him to come over. I'd say I'd buy him a drink. I started talking to him. This man is Bobby Grabowski. And I tell him, what's going on? He goes, my life's rough. And I go, I'll bet you that my life is rougher than your life. And he goes, I'll take that bet. And he goes, what do you bet, sir? I go, I bet that if your life is worse, I will take care of all your legal matters for the rest of your life for free. What do you bet? And he bet me a Gabagazoo. I didn't know what it was. I was really looking forward to winning it. So I took the bet. I explained that I missed my father's funeral to take a bar exam, and that I felt empty, and that nothing in my life will ever feel good again because I broke a promise. He explained that in one day, he had dressed up like a dog to be put into a dog pound so he could eat that delicious dog food that they hand out for free there. He had snuck into a hospital to sleep under a coma patient's bed because they don't check that often. His doctor recently looked at his penis and said he had a micro U-shaped penis, the only one of its kind. U-shaped. His doctor was just a homeless guy behind Long John Silver's. Then he pulled up his pant leg, and this I'll never forget. He pulled up his pant leg, and I asked, what was that? And apparently his toe fungus had spread all the way up to his knee. And finally, he said that he had given the bartender a Gabagazoo, a very deviant sex act, which I will not describe ever again to anybody, so that he could suck gin-soaked martini olives in the bar. He won the bet. And I have been doing all of his legal work behind his back for free. Because I broke a promise to my brother. I won't break a promise to Bobby Grabowski. But every time I come up to him, he thinks I'm a process server trying to serve him. So he runs away, even though I'm doing all this work for him, trying to make his life better. So I find out he's dead. And I'm here to speak to explain all the things I've done for him that is the Bobby Grabowski estate. One, recently mentioned Brunch Busters. He's complete owner of it. Donnie Grabowski wrote everything in Crayola. None of that, all that's null and void. All of that's null and void. He owns Brunch Busters. All the money made there goes to Bobby Grabowski. As his legal counsel, the Food Network contacted me. They wanted to make a TV show for his cooking show, Cooking for One for the Rest of Your Life. They loved it. They wanted to give him full artistic control. He was going to be a star. He was going to be Emeril Lagasse big. I also can unequivocally prove that he is the inventor of fidget spinner. The man who invented it saw him one day in an alleyway twirling his dislocated middle finger around in a circle that he had smashed in a dumpster trying to get half a dime. Not a nickel, half a dime. Bobby Grabowski has stayed in a lot of efficiency apartments that he actually legally owns now due to the Flenderson Act of '74, where if you make something 90% sad like yourself, you own that place. Bobby Grabowski has more real estate than 95% of the people in this city. But he doesn't know that. Also, you met his sponsor earlier. That spread fast of how his sponsor got off the wagon that quickly. Malort has contacted me. He was going to be the face of Malort. Another one, this is kind of a strange one, and I'm very surprised. Loosely Lawless had contacted me. She heard about Bobby Grabowski. She wanted to know more about him. She found him attractive but was shy because she has a micro-shaped, U-shaped vagina. The only one of its kind. Some would say a perfect fit for Bobby Grabowski, but he's dead. Also, thanks to Mike Pence's new pass of the Handmaids Act of 2017, Bobby Grabowski actually has legal full custody of Samantha. He doesn't know it. Full custody. She's 19. He still has complete control. She's obligated to meet him once a week for 2 hours to make him feel like a good dad. And lastly, in Hallstatt, Austria, there was a king, King Gorbo, an ancestor of Bobby Grabowski. King Gorbo is known as the Sad King, who wrote that in the 11th generation, the firstborn will get his entire estate, his castle on the lake in Hallstatt, Austria, and the entire millions and millions of dollars that comes along with that. If Bobby Grabowski was alive today and met me in person, he would not only own a castle in Austria, but be worth $432,287. But I never saw him. And due to him being dead, in front of you all, I will tear up this contract.
Don't tear. It's me! I'm alive, everybody! Don't be fooled by the trench coat! Frank, I do not remember you, but I like all these things that you just said about me. I do not like the other things that were said about me.
I feel like I got a whole lot of explaining to do, Dana. Everybody, thanks for coming. There's not hardly as many of you as I was hoping for. Sometimes you get. Can we get everybody out here, please? Can everybody just come out here, please? Hi, Detective. Hobo Joe! Samantha! It's Daddy! Hi, Denise? Donnie! Okay, I'll go on without Donnie. Look, everybody, you all mean more to me than anybody. You guys don't ever seem to. Where's my sponsor?
He went to the
Robert!
He went to the bar. I'm going to the fucking bar.
Okay, that stings. Listen, everybody, life's kind of tough sometimes. I don't know if you put that together throughout tonight. Sometimes you just want to reach out. You want to go somewhere where everybody knows your name, and they don't, every one of them mispronounce it all night long. I'm going to start. Dana, you put this whole thing together. You're my best friend by default because Hobo Joe rejected me. Donnie, suck it, loser. I own the Brunch Buster. Get out of here. Hobo Joe, I'm going to buy you a box twice as big. Yeah, you are. But that possum isn't moving in. No. Samantha, we're going to have all the time together in the world. You and me, we're going to live in a castle. You're really going to be a princess. It's true, everybody. Oh, my God. Denise. Detective, I'm real happy that you came to my place and filled out that form about me. That's probably the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me. Frank, I do not remember you, but I did think you were trying to serve me. Ladies and gentlemen of the audience, you came here. I heard you laughing a lot, and that hurt. But it doesn't matter because I'm a billionaire. And you guys are beneath me, and things are finally coming up, Bobby. And everybody just, you all fuck yourselves. You fuck yourself, Dana. Everybody here gonna go fuck yourself, Denise. Go fuck Todd, Denise. You bitch. How do I get this money, Frank?
So are you telling me you are Bobby Grabowski?
Gosh darn right I am. Bobby Grabowski, richest man on the planet.
Here are your papers. You've been served.
Arrest this man. Well, no! No! That is not how it's supposed to go. You guys are supposed to be sad about him dead. Samantha, can I be in your selfie? I'm pretty sure Donnie's dead. Oh.
Well, we learned some things tonight. We learned it's never too late to get a new lease on life. We learned turkey basters just aren't for turkeys anymore. We learned to never trust a hobo. We learned that police have a thankless job and BBC doesn't just stand for British Broadcasting Company. We learned that nothing is stronger than brotherly love. That Samantha is definitely the product of Bobby and Denise. And that crime doesn't pay. The show was created by the big pretty Jim Lugers. Yeah. I'd like to thank the White Rabbit. Give the bartender a round of applause. On your tables are these cards about all the different awesome events that happen at the White Rabbit Cabaret. There's even a calendar on the back of one of them. Please take a look at them. Take them home. Share them with your loved ones. Tonight you saw Austin Reel, David Britton, Jonathan Fendler, Pauline Shapula, Sam Griswold, Joe Bates, Gwen Sunkel, and Isaac Lanfert. I was Dana Glass. Thank you for spending an evening with the authors, and please remember Bobby Grabowski.